What's up, everybody? Happy Thursday. You are tuned into another week of She Evolves. And as we are wrapping up Human Trafficking Awareness Month, um, I want to actually get into the actual survivor story and what it doesn't look like in the movies, how it really looks in real life. So everyone make sure that you hit my subscribe button. I am live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It is Ivy Nicole, Nichole. Y'all, please don't forget that. H is no E in my first name. It's just IVY. So today we have Jessica Johnson from Changing Souls. And, we always talk about she evolves. And, it's always very important to actually highlight the evolution of a woman. And this woman has certainly evolved into her womanhood, into her greatness. So thank you, Jessica, for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me.
Just kind of introduce yourself and let everyone know um, who are you, where you from, where are you currently.
My name is Jessica Johnson, and I am in Portland, Oregon. And I'm married, and I have 4 children. I do human trafficking advocacy work, victim advocacy work, trauma advocacy work, and I also do ministry as well.
So I think we're gonna just kind of start there before we actually get into what is human trafficking in real life versus the white van in the movie Taken. So your advocacy work in your ministry, let's start there.
I got into human trafficking advocacy work because I myself am a survivor from human trafficking. I lived that life for 10 years. I started at 16 years old and I didn't get out to about 26, 27 years old. And then when I was delivered from human trafficking, um, I got into, what is my purpose? What do I want to do? So I took my healing journey and my pain and utilized that as my purpose. So, because I know what it's like not to have the proper help and the resources. So I said to myself, okay, how can I take my pain and the trauma and the experiences that I've gone through for 10 years and turn it into something positive? Because I didn't just want to be stuck in my pain and poor me, and, victim. So I started to get the proper healing, and then I started to go to the church. I started to just read the word. I got delivered at a grocery store, and then I just started to continue with this process. So, um, in my advocacy work, what I do is I can either rescue children, men, women, boys, transgender people that's coming from the trafficking lifestyle. I provide them with the proper resources, whether it's mental health, whether it's trauma informed, or just get them the things that they need to survive in the everyday life without having them to go backwards. And my ministry, what I do is I take women or young children and lead them to God. Let them know that God can restore them, redeem them, heal them as I have been redeemed and healed from the Lord as well. So that's what I do. Changing Souls is my ministry. So Changing Souls came about because when I got delivered at the grocery store, October 12th of 2018, I journal. That's how I got through a lot of my pain, is through journaling. So I'd write, and I have like 4 or 5 composition books of just me writing everything that I've gone through, and then my deliverance, and how I came to Christ. And um, my husband is the one that came and helped me get delivered, because he planted seeds. Though I did not want to receive it, he had dreams and visions, and those dreams and visions had happened prior to my deliverance. So because of that, I was curious to know, is there a God? Because how can this man know what was going to happen 10 years prior to it actually happening, detail to detail? So it brought the curiosity of, is there a God? Can there be a God? And then I heard Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 into my spirit. And that's what led me to the curiosity of finding out who God was, who Jesus was. I wanted to know him for myself. And then that's how I got delivered at a grocery store while I had my three boys with me. So I've taken my experience and my pain and my healing and applied it to helping others and helping them through their journey of healing and overcoming the lifestyle of being trafficked in.
Okay, so okay, it's like a two-part question right now. First, before you continue, because I want to kind of back up and know that experience in the grocery store. But
Okay.
before you get there, I see a few people on, and no one has said anything yet. But shout out your information, especially your clubhouse room, for
So,
those in the clubhouse, so they can go and check you out and
so,
see what while we're on.
so I have a clubhouse on the app called the Clubhouse, obviously, and it's Changing Souls. So, Jessica Johnson, Changing Souls is the name of the clubhouse. And in that clubhouse, I provide information of human trafficking awareness, the perspective from the prostitutes, perspective of the victim. We talk about the pimps, we talk about the buyers. What does the grooming process look like? Why do a person that's a John, or as we know as a trick in the lifestyle, they're known as tricks, but in advocacy work, they're known as Johns. I get to deep diving of, why would a John want to buy sex? These are the type of questions that I ask in my clubhouse. So the titles, for example, would be, um, what are the behaviors of a pimp? Why would a John forward slash trick want to buy sex when they're married? So these are the type of clubs rooms that I have on the clubhouse underneath Changing Souls. And then, um, do you want me to tell you the whole testimony of the grocery store and how Matthew moved,
Yeah.
how I got into deliverance?
Hmm.
So what happened was is that at 16 years old, I had run away from home due to home not being ideal, safe and love and all of that. I ran away from home, and I ended up in the streets called 82nd in Portland, Oregon, where prostitutes and pimps and Johns are known for picking up girls, pimping on girls. So because I was a runaway and I was so sheltered, I ended up being trafficked by another man, and he ended up taking me to Vegas and Seattle and California, just taking me all over. As we call 10 toes down, I ended up walking the streets first before I ended up on the internet and escorting call girls and doing strip clubs and things like that. So when I was trafficked, uh, I was pretty much abused. So I was raped by the pimp. I was emotionally, verbally, psychologically just damaged, beyond shattered, because of the abuse that I had already went with by having a narcissistic dad. So it was easy for another man to groom me in that way because it was already going on. That's what I ran away from. So by this man being 6'3", 300 pounds, beating me down to where I was bloody, I just submitted because I said to myself, this is going to be a life or death situation. So I played the game to survive so I wouldn't end up dead. But either way, whether it was the John or the pimp, I still find myself getting hurt, beat up, cut, stabbed, thrown out of cars, raped, I have two children from the lifestyle. One, I was raped by a John, and then by my pimp, I was raped by him, and I have a child, two children that I've given up for adoption. Um, and then I ended up being stuck in a lifestyle of prostitution after the pimp went to prison. I was stuck in a lifestyle because I didn't fit into my classification of my dad's lifestyle as a captain for American Airlines. So I ended up going to a woman's shelter. At this time, I was pregnant with the pimp baby. And though I knew I could have gotten an abortion, but because of how I was raised by not giving an abortion. So I carried this child not knowing what I was going to do, but I ended up giving it up for adoption. So while I gave the children up for adoption, I said to myself, now what? I have no family, nobody cares, no resources. Human trafficking resources wasn't big as it is now then. So I ended up prostituting myself to survive. I had to eat, I had to live. And then I had this rage towards men. I hated them because of the things that was done to me. So I used prostitution as a control and power over men. Um, I charged them high prices because I knew I could. It became a controlling thing. Um, though I hated doing it, I felt like I was trapped. I didn't have any support, nobody to help me. Um, though I lived that life, I met this man who's now my husband on the chat line. I wasn't looking for anybody, just I just wanted somebody to talk to. And so this guy, he was cool. I talked to him for 3 months on the chat line. Then I met him in person. You know, something about him was different where I felt peace and protected, but yet I didn't trust. I did everything in my willpower to push him away and not get too close, but he kept on, trying, and he kept on not giving up, and didn't know that he was a man of God. He was a believer. And though he would talk to me, and I was just like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to hear it. Whatever. That's your belief. Whatever. And then eventually he asked me to marry him. Though that my psychological process was so brainwashed and messed up, I'm thinking, okay, well, I could be married legally and still do what I do because I can't get in trouble. He's not a pimp. So therefore, I'm thinking in the criminal perspective. I'm married. I could do what I got to do. It is what it is. Because I didn't tell my husband that I suffered from prostitution and trafficked as a kid. So I told him I did massages and, things of that. And eventually, because I put myself out there so much in Portland, people started to come up to him and say, hey, do you know that you married a prostitute? Did you know that she's a whore? These type of things. And eventually he sat down with me, talked to me. And by now, a couple of years went by, and I told him, yes, this is what happened. I didn't tell him full details. So from then on, he would try to help me get out of the lifestyle, help me transition, but I was still so stubborn. He would pray with me, take me to the church. I would be in a church house, like, I'm ready to go. I don't want to be here. I'm trying to set up calls. I just had this thing about wanting to control and power over men because of what happened to me. So eventually, um, he tells me that I'm gonna get in trouble, you better stop and this and that. And I'm like, no, no, no. Some years went by. I'm like, oh no, I'm never gonna get in trouble. I'm calculating my moves. Sure enough, 10 years later, I get in trouble with the law. And my husband tells me from detail to detail exactly what had happened. That brought the curiosity of, okay, how did this man know full details? How did he know that I was going to get in trouble? How did he know that the police was going to come and it was going to be a wrongful bust? It was going to be, the whole entire thing was illegal. How did he know this thing? So it made me question in my alone time, is there a God? Can God be real? He would pray with me, though I would go along with it. I didn't care for it. He would tell me just to have faith, just trust in God. And I was like, whatever. And then I ended up becoming homeless. I was 25. I had our first son. And things started to happen. My money wasn't coming in as the way it was. I couldn't understand what was going on. Calls wasn't coming in the way I wanted to. Next, I got pregnant again, and I had twins. And then I ended up homeless. I was like, oh my gosh, now what? um I had to humble myself and go to the welfare office and get food stamps and get on cash assistance and sign up for Section 8 because I wasn't able to prostitute. I had kids now. So one day, this was October 12th of 2018. I'm saying to myself, on public transportation with three boys, a 4-year-old, and a set of brand new twins. And I'm asking myself, what is going on with me? Am I losing my mind? Have me living this lifestyle for 10 years just damaged me? Just through all the multiple of rapes and touching and the roughing up and throwing out of cars and, having a permanent jaw dislocation and all these things. I was just reminiscing, like, man, how did this happen? So I was on a public transportation thinking I was going to go to a friend's house because she wanted to meet the twins. So I'm on the public transportation, pushing a double stroller, sitting down next to my 4-year-old, and I hear a voice, get off. And I'm looking behind me like, who's telling me to get off? I heard it again, get off. So I felt led to get off the Max, which is a public transportation. So about 10 feet from there, there's a grocery store. And this time I only had $60 on my food stamp card. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know, what am I doing? I'm going to a store. Like, why am I going there? And I heard a voice say, trust me. And I'm thinking to myself, whatever voice that I'm hearing, I must be going crazy. I don't understand why I'm hearing these things. And the lifestyle has totally damaged me. And I hear, again, trust me, I'll provide. So I say to myself, okay, look, if it's God that I'm talking to, I don't want to hear Sally Jesse Raphael's testimony. I'm done hearing everybody what their perspective of God. If you are real and I'm not hearing the devil's voice, prove to Jessica, prove to me you're real. I hear again, trust me, I'll provide. And of course I get mad. I'm like, oh, I don't trust anybody. I don't even trust myself right now. So you want me to trust? And I'm arguing. People's looking at me like I'm literally losing my mind. So I go into the store. I grab 3 cans of formula, like talking to myself, man, I'm jacked up. My mind is jacked up. I'm hearing voices. I'm doing things that I shouldn't be doing. I'm listening to this. I'm just talking to myself like I'm just losing it. So I grabbed the 3 cans off the milk out of the baby aisle. I get in the cashier's line. So there's a grandma lady in front of me, and then a lady like about in her early 40s behind me. The lady behind me talks to me about the twins. Oh, she's so cute, and she's, the boys are cute, and they're cute, and, what type of twins? Just typical small talk. The grandma lady in front of me says, blessings to you. I don't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, whatever, thanks. So it's my turn to pay, and I pull out my food stamp card thinking it's time for me to pay. I go to the cashier and she literally hands me my groceries. And I said, I don't have to pay. She says, no. I said, shut up. Like, what makes me so special? Why do I not have to pay? She leans in towards me and says, that's why the lady in front of you said blessings to you. And the minute I grabbed my groceries, I was filled with the fire of God. I knew from that moment, it was like my mind rewinded for the few seconds, minutes of what was said in my spirit, what I called my intuition at the time. Because I was into psychology and medicine, that's what I called it, my intuition, because I didn't know the truth. I didn't know there was a God. You hear about it, but to have that connection, I didn't have it. So within seconds, I put it together. Oh my gosh, God is real. So I had a supernatural encounter with God that moment. I cried. I was happy. I was joyful. I still to this day can't explain in words the emotions that I felt. There's no words for me to explain it, besides the fact that I know God is real because of the fact He told me he was going to provide, but he didn't tell me how he was going to provide. So it was just the fact that I walked out on that little tiny mustard seed of faith that led me to my encounter with God. From that moment, I was delivered completely from prostitution. I wasn't, trying to dibble and dabble and this and that. I completely just knew God was real. And that's when I heard the Bible verse again, Matthew chapter 6, verse 33. Seek the kingdom, right? And I'm like, seek the kingdom. So it made me go get a Bible and see what was the rest of the Bible verse. So because of that, I got the Bible and I went to go, Matthew chapter 6, 33. Okay, I went down to 33 and I read it and I was like, oh my gosh, he provided for me without me even knowing how he was going to provide, but I trusted him. And because I was desperate, I wanted out, but I was going through all these horrible situations that I couldn't do anything but surrender. And because of that, I was literally filled with the fire of God, and my body temperature was just raising hot. I could just feel it just getting hot. But it wasn't like the heat like you feel from the sun or from the heater. It was like burning from the inside out. Like it was internal. And then I was sweating, like I couldn't stop sweating. You would think that I ran 10 miles on full speed. But if I could have taken off my shirt and wringed it out, I would have had a puddle of bodily sweat because that's how much I perspired. That moment, I was filled, and I went back home, told my husband, I had, I had an encounter with God. And he said, that's great. I knew it. I knew this day was coming. And I'm like looking at him like, huh? Confused. He's like, I have these encounters all the time. I was like, okay, great, but you don't understand. Like, I just had an encounter with God. Like so I sit down and I'm telling him and I'm talking so fast. And from that day forward, I never stopped staying in the word. I stayed in the word. I didn't think about prostituting. I started to surrender to the Lord. I gave my burdens to him. I told him, take the pain, take the heartache, take the trauma. I know you can't erase it, but help me heal. Help me understand, why did I end up like this? How did this happen? And as I started to go through this journey with the Lord for the last 3 years, he literally healed me, redeemed me, restored me. And then he said, changing souls. And I was like, changing souls? I'm thinking he said changing souls as my soul was changed from being hard, rock, and bitter, and angry, and rageful to loving and caring and joyful, and got a different perspective for people. Then I started to understand the spiritual warfare that I was in, and the things that my dad had planted and spoke over me. So because of that, I also heard in my spirit prostitution to Christitution, because he had to let me understand. He goes, you was trafficked from 16 to 19, but from 19 to 26, who forced you? And I started to think like, oh my gosh. And he started to help me understand that I had the spirit of Jezebel on me and all these different things. He started to help me understand and uproot it so I could be set free. So once the deliverance and the supernatural encounter occurred, the process of healing and reprogramming my mind, because I was so brainwashed, just so out there when it came to reality, because I had a pimp that damaged me, psychologically damaged me. And so when God was uprooting these things inside of me, I started to realize I started off being trafficked as a child, but it bled over to my adult because of the hurt and pain. And I used prostitution as a control and power over men. And though I wasn't forced, I did it to myself. God had to help me understand, yes, you started off this way, but it still was your choice to prostitute for whatever reason you was doing it. And so once I trusted and leaned on the Lord's understanding, I started to understand what was going on in my life. I started to be redeemed. I started to be restored. And once that happened, I started to make Facebook a Facebook group called Changing Souls, where I just shared the word. I share my testimony. I share what faith is. I shared all the things that the Lord was sharing to me to other women that's in the sex industry, that are sex workers, that are strippers, webcamming, all these things, because we are so brainwashed by the enemy that we can't see clearly because the veil is on. But once the veil was uplifted, I could see clearly through the lens of God. So once that had occurred, I started to say, okay, now I've been healed and restored and redeemed, Lord. What is my purpose? What do you want me to do? And he wouldn't answer me for a while, for a few months. I'm like, man, you used to say things to me all the time. What's going on? And
Mhm.
I understand why. Because if he would have told me then, oh, you're going to go back to those same pit where you came from and help others. And I would have been like, oh, no, I'm good.
Oh, I'm not going back there.
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not going back. Like, I'm good. Like, no, 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 no. You could choose somebody else. But because it was a process for me to be healed, he waited for his perfect time in his perfect way and said to me in a loving way, you're going to have a ministry called Changing Souls. You're going to be an advocate, but you're also going to have, I started to get visions from him. You're going to have a safe house, not just for women and children, but for the men, for the young boys, for the pimps, for the buyers, because they too need Jesus. It's not just about the women. Yes, majority of the women and children are trafficked, but what we don't acknowledge is the men, the transgender, the people in the LGBTQ that are trafficked as well. God was showing me, yes, we don't like their sin, but they are still my creation. I still created them in my image. So I need you to go back in the kingdom of darkness, not to go back and live it, but to pull those same people out as you was pulled out. So I tell people I was never delivered at a church. I never had hands laid on me. Nobody prayed over me. I literally went off at the time in my worldly perspective, my intuition, and was led through my husband's dreams. The curiosity started, and then I got delivered. Once I got delivered, now I go and help other people get delivered so they can feel the love of God. And so once that had happened, he said, okay, you're going to have a ministry and you're going to advocate, and now I'm going to give you the resources to be able to have a facility for those people to be saved. And that's how that had occurred.
Wow. That is so amazing. We always look at our struggles, and say we're not going back. We're not going back, and we're just gonna forget it happened. But it's amazing how God puts you in situations, and they always say that God will never put you in a situation that you can't handle. He will not put more on you than you cannot handle.
Right.
Um, but God knew that you can handle it, and He brought you through it, so you are able to help others. So when we're talking, just about human trafficking awareness and prevention, because like we had the conversation before, as we kind of talked about, it's not what you see on the movies. And I say it all the time to get out of the stat world of what you see, what you hear, Google, the DSM. I mean, all of those are great tools and resources or whatever. But when you're looking at it from an actual survivor perspective, we don't really talk about who are the buyers here. Can we talk about the buyer situation? Um, why does that happen? It's not who you think it is. The
So
the
a,
buyer, however you wanna
a buyer,
do it.
the men that are buying the prostitutes or the children are actually uh anybody. It could be a teacher, it could be your neighbor, it can be your boss, it could be a politician, it could be law enforcement. I've encountered all the above. I was coerced as a 17-year-old to sleep with a police officer so I wouldn't go to jail. um and I realized that a lot of these buyers are Caucasian men that are older that have a wife and children, and because of the careers and because of their finances, they're able to obtain a lawyer and get this off. But the reason why they are able to do the things that they're doing is because when you have politicians that's engaging in human trafficking, how do you stop that? How do you know, bring more awareness when they're trying to flag you down and muzzle your voice because you are telling the truth? And I'm not telling the truth from an advocate perspective. I'm telling the truth from having seen government officials. These are the people that are supposed to protect stuff. These are lawmakers. And they're manipulating the law for their own personal gain. They're manipulating the law to suit their finances, to pursue their own addiction, because it is a buyer either is not getting it from home, so he has fantasies that he wants to fulfill, and the perspective is these prostitutes don't have anybody that cares for them. That's why they're on the streets. That's where they're selling themselves. They also have this understanding, well, because I'm helping them, because I'm paying them, I'm helping them finances, whether it's to pay school, rent, whatever the reason is, I'm helping them, and that they like it, which is not accurate at all. I hated doing what I was doing, but I had to turn off Jessica, and I created this whole new persona of a being, because I had to turn those emotions off in my mind, in my heart, so it wouldn't bother me. And I'm glad that I did, to an extent, because I probably would have ended up in a cuckoo house, because of all that I had to endure. But how how do you stop the buyers? The main thing I'd ask is, why would a person want to buy sex when you can just go have a personal relationship and engage in a sexual, you know behavior then? But the problem is that we have pornography in the porn industry that create these videos, and they're supposed to be actors, right? But these actors are committing heinous crimes, and these people that are watching it, you've got rape pornography, you've got children pornography, you've got all these things that's out there that you could get through the dark web in a black market, that after watching it for so many times, it triggers them. It triggers to want to fulfill these fantasies. They want to fulfill this high. So because of that situation, they go out looking for victims to go buy and purchase. They go through the dark web to purchase these children and these women, so they can fulfill their sexual desires, and they will pay any amount to fulfill it. They don't care, because they can afford it, so again, these buyers are majority Caucasian older men that have the financial gain to get themselves out of trouble and to be able to purchase whatever price that they want to fulfill their fantasies.
Yeah, because it's disposable income. They have disposable income. They can afford it. They have the resources. They have the backing. Um, and they have the pretty much the law on their side because they're probably some high profile individual. You're not going to get the random person that work at the plant
Right.
that's going out purchasing sex. Um, and you spoke on something earlier, which was very intriguing, and it's always has been like a constant debate as we talk about sex trafficking and sex work and how it's so different. And sex workers say that work is work, sex work is work. It's just like you going to work every day. But as you stated earlier, when you are a victim of child trafficking, eventually you do grow up and you become a legal adult. And now that you become a legal adult, you begin to prostitute yourself, and it's a sense of power.
Yes.
um, kind of talk about that, the whole mentality of the sex work world and prostitution, because no one grows up and says, I'm going to quit my nursing job and become a prostitute.
Right. Um,
It's a grooming. It's something that happened early on in childhood, and now that you're an adult, you think you're that bitch, and you think you can control things. You think you can regulate things, and you think you're on top of the world, and you have this sense of power that men want to buy me, and I can get your money. Is that mentality?
so my whole mentality behind it, I can speak for myself mainly, is because of the fact that home, I was already being abused at home. And because of that, that led into more severe abuse. And so while I was a child in a teenage year and being trafficked in, I learned the ropes. I was smart. I said, okay, I either abide by what this man wants me to do to stay safe and alive and figure out how this work in the streets, or I'm gonna end up dead. And so I had to make an ultimatum. Once I survived and he went to jail and I was still disowned by my dad, that just set me off. I said, all right. It was like I turned night and day. I was like, okay, I got you. And when I used to say I got you, I said it in a very malicious way where I was like, all right, don't trip. I got you. And when I said that, I said, any man that come in my way, you coming out your pockets, period, point blank. I don't care what you say, you're coming out your pockets. Um, I learned how to manipulate them to the point where, because when I got dressed up and made up and put my makeup on and my heels and lingerie, it was night and day, right? Um, and I knew how to reel these tricks in. And because of that, I had a mouthpiece. I learned how to run game. I learned how to do all this manipulation because I said, since men think that they can do what they want and treat women however they want, I'm going to reverse it on them. I'm sitting on a gold mine. You want to hit what I got on a regular day, you would never come in contact with me. Sorry, I'm not going to date no 45-year-old man and up. I'm just not going to do it. It's gross to me. But because I was already damaged at 16, 17, 18, 19, I said to myself, all right, I'm going to reverse it. Some pimps think they can do this and traffickers think they can have organized crime. I'm going to show them that I don't need a pimp. I don't need a trafficker. And anybody that wants to come in my way, I saved text messages, I saved emails because I knew a lot of them were married. And there was times where, yes, their wives would call me and say, hey, you were sleeping with my husband or blah, blah, blah. Oh, you want to know some information? You're going to have to meet me somewhere and come out your pockets too. And that's how I was. And it was a sense of power and control. Like, all right, I could manipulate you into anything. I would have Johns and tricks, go to the liquor store and buy me gallons of alcohol just for me to return it back to the liquor store and get some money. I was hustling any way I can. They would think I drink it with them. I tell them bring me 2, 3 gallons of, whatever, vodka, Captain Morgan, Hennessy. I didn't care. Bring whatever, right? But the top notch type of alcohol. And act like I was drinking with them when I didn't. I take a sip, but spit it right back in in my chaser, thinking that I was drinking it. Act like I was drunk, when really got them drunk to the point where they would just have to come out their pocket every time. Oh, that's another 500. That's 1,000. That's this. That's that, and didn't care because I knew in my mind they would never ever meet me in the everyday world. I would never date you. Two, because the fact that I was a biracial exotic woman and there wasn't too many in Portland, I knew I could manipulate on that perspective. And then my pictures, these tricks would tell me, oh my gosh, you look better in person than what your pictures reveal. Wrong thing to do. Because then that gave me a boost of another power. All right, I would go on these photo shoots and they would tell me, wow, it's beautiful, this and this and that. And then when they see me, they was even more blown away. So I learned how to manipulate and start little, but by the time I walked out and was done with them, I done had a whole stack in my hand, you know. So it became an addiction to, how can I manipulate them out of their pockets? How much can I get from this guy? I would set a quota for myself to achieve, right? For myself, not because I had a pimp or anything. I was testing my game, which made me sharper, made me quicker, made me, learn to manipulate quicker and faster. And all it was because I got tired of being controlled by the men in my family. I got tired of being controlled by the pimp. I got tired of being controlled by the tricks. I learned to control everything. I had cameras. I did it all. I set it up to where I knew I was safe, and then eventually it came all crashing down. But my high was manipulating these men. They come in thinking they're paying one thing and they walk out broker than broke, having to explain to their significant other where all the money go. I couldn't tell you, but that's just how I was. My high was, how can I manipulate him? How can I control him? How can I leave him for nothing? I looked at it like this: you are a trick coming to see a prostitute. You're not going to trick me. So I'm going to trick you out of everything you have, period. And that was my high. It was a game, it was a cat and mouse game to me.
So, what about the dangers of prostitution?
Eh, it's not glamorous, I could tell you that. I do have cuts and stab wounds and, permanent damage from, guys roughing me up and stuff. This is not a job that any person should be living. It's not a job, actually. I hate when they say it's a game, or that's what they say in the streets, the game, and it's not a game at all. Your life is not a game. Now that I'm on the other flip side, I can see that uh, there's no amount of money that you could pay or offer me now. It's not a game, because there have been a few instances where I should have been dead. I should not be here speaking about it. I should be like the typical statistics of girls that's in a lifestyle of prostitution, dead somewhere in the woods. But the grace of God, that didn't happen. It is very dangerous. At times I would try to tell myself I don't need a pimp, but then I'd be like, well, I see why you have a pimp. I was so lost, but then I tell myself, I'm not paying no pimp for him to beat me up and hurt me and rape me and do all these weird things, and I don't see a dime of my own money that I'm risking my life for. Um, there was a incident before I came homeless and got delivered. There was an incident where a trick had came to my in call, and my in call was, I made enough money to where I had my own in call, 2 3 bedroom apartment, and I had somewhere else where I'd stay. And I would have the rooms turned out during the day. If I knew, the people had to come and do a check or whatever, fix things in the house, I would make it look like there was normal people living there. But as soon as they leave, I turn it around, be fetish, massage, full service, all this stuff. And there was a moment where I used to call a guy named Candyman, because he looked just like Candyman. Like, he came in trench coat, black glasses, a briefcase, and had it not been the voice telling me, if you open this door, this will be your last breath. You're not gonna stop. You're gonna open the door. I didn't open the door. I turned my phone off. I didn't do anything. I didn't work for a couple of days. I was so spooked. But it was that time again. Rent, bills. I didn't have a job. I was living above my means. So I was like, I gotta hustle. And so that was my mentality. Like, I gotta do it. Yeah, it's dangerous, but this is the chances that I'm taking. I knew the difference, right and wrong. I knew it was dangerous, but prostitution is an addiction, just like you smoke meth, cocaine, alcohol is no different. The rush is the money. That's what it is. It's the money, the amount of money you can make within 2 3 hours. And if you work the whole entire day, you come back with a few stacks. So how do you transition from making thousands and thousands of money to, you have to save on your every 2 week paycheck? How do you transition from that? um it was hard for me. But when I had that Candyman experience, and then I got in trouble, I realized I had to stop. And when I became homeless, I had to stop because it just wasn't worth it. And when I was homeless, a girl here locally had passed away from two girls actually had passed away. That was my cue. I really need to get out the game. It's getting too dangerous. Prostitutes was dying left and right on the West Coast, all up and down California, Portland, Washington. I started to get like, okay, I, I really need to stop. And plus, I got kids, and it's the most dangerous lifestyle you could ever live. I've got cut, stabbed, raped, punched. There's a couple times I've laid in my own puddle of blood just from being knocked out and nobody willing to help me. It's not a safe. It's not what people think it is whatsoever. Anybody tell you that's glamorous, they're lying. That's just part of the grooming to get you comfortable. It's very dangerous. I should have been dead long time ago. But I'm glad that I'm here to be able to give the awareness to everybody, not just women, but everybody needs to know it's dangerous, very dangerous.
I see a few comments. Latrice Cash, she said, "What caused the homelessness?"
Um, I so what caused the homelessness is that I couldn't pay my bills. So, and a couple years back when I was fully on the internet, that's what I was doing. I was a call girl and I was doing escorting, and then I would post ads on Backpage, Craigslist. Um, for some reason, my calls was going down. I couldn't understand what was going on, not understanding that my husband was praying behind closed doors for me to be delivered. So I didn't understand what prayers did, and I didn't understand that he'd have people pray for me to get delivered. Um, so I became homeless because I didn't get enough calls to pay my rent. I didn't have the finances to pay my rent. The calls were slowing up. There was a national sting that was going around, so everybody was scared. Pimps, traffickers, prostitutes, buyers, everybody was kind of on edge during that time. And so I didn't have the money to pay my rent. So it was either I come up with the money or I just leave. And what I did was I just left because no calls was coming. I didn't have no type of money. And so instead of me getting an eviction notice on my background, I just left. I just told them I can't afford it anymore. Things has gotten rough and I just don't have it. And the lady just worked with me, and instead of me getting evicted on background, she just says just go. And that time I all my stuff was in the shed, um, in a storage, and then that's how I ended up being on Section 8 and being on food stamps and being on cash assistance because I had no finances. I pretty much lost a lot of my stuff because I didn't have anywhere to go. I had to sell out of the stuff. I needed money. I had kids. And um, that's how I ended up being homeless. I couldn't pay my rent. I lived way above my means, way above my means.
So it is unfortunately almost time to log out. But before we log out, I want to kind of pose the question: what would you tell this generation of girls coming up? The wannabe Instagram models, the young girls on TikTok, on Instagram, the girls that think it's cool to be the video vixen. What is your advice to them?
Um, First and foremost, you every woman, every young child, every teenager that is a female, I first want to encourage you that you are beautiful without having to be naked, shaking your ass, showing your titties. You don't need to do all of that. All that Nicki Minaj and Carly B and Megan Stallion, whoever else that's out there. I don't even know anymore because I don't pay attention. Um, don't allow that to influence you to um, want to take off your clothes for some money, because a video vixen, that leads to human trafficking. Modeling is a high end of prostitution. Um, all of that. Don't ever send your money. Don't send your parts or your nakedness to anybody. Not through Instagram, not through Snapchat, not through TikTok, Facebook. None of that. Do not sell yourself short, because that's what you're doing. And the trauma and the pain and the dignity that they take away from you, you can never gain it back. It takes a long time to heal than it is to get involved in something you can't get yourself out of. You are beautiful just the way you are. Save yourself for a person that truly loves you, somebody that's going to respect you and not treat you like a piece of gum, chew you up and throw you out and let another person walk all over you, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They will not respect you, they will treat you like you're less than, and you are valuable to someone. So please do not fall for the so-called video vixen and models, because that's a front. These girls are paid high end to portray themselves the way they do, and they don't respect themselves. They're in it for the money, and money cannot buy love, happiness, and most of all, peace.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Let everyone know how they can get in contact with you.
You can find me on Facebook, Jessica Changing Souls Johnson. Then you can find my Facebook group, Changing Souls. You can also find me on Changing Souls 17 on Instagram. You can also find me on the Clubhouse, Jessica Johnson. And my Clubhouse, again, is also Changing Souls. I advocate and I give information, I encourage, I edify, and I do ministry on all platforms. So please do find me.
When is your next room?
So I'll have my next room actually in Changing Souls on the Clubhouse tomorrow, and we're gonna talk about uh, do Johns have mental illness? Do they have an addiction to sex? Is that why do they buy sex?
Mm. What time is the room?
11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
So that's 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 hours. I was like, wait, what time is it? But so if you are on Clubhouse, please make sure you go and you check her out. Her and her amazing husband, they're always double teamed in a room together. He always got her back all the time. Much respect to him always. For just coming and changing you and praying over you and just everything that you guys have done. You are definitely a true inspiration, a power couple, and I love you guys.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for hearing me out, allowing me to share my story. And we love you too. And continue to come in, because I will. I like to bring the tough topics to human trafficking, the questions, and bring the answers that people don't want to talk about. And I don't have a problem, because God gave me the boldness and the voice to tell the truth, because the truth shall set you free.
It is, and we have to have these conversations. We have to. It's too many people hurt. It's too many people out here. They need to be saved, and we can
Amen.
sweep this conversation under the rug
Right.
and filter it with steps.
And I think too is the problem is that we've normalized sex, because it's just all over. Sex is just normal, to the point where we've kind of dehumanized people of our morals and what sex is really supposed to be about, because it's all over. It's like the norm, and it's really not the norm, because they don't understand the darkness behind the sexual behaviors.
Yeah. All right, Jessica, thank you so much again. And everyone, make sure that you follow Jessica on Clubhouse, especially because she will be going in. I've been in a couple of her rooms and she goes in. So you don't want to miss the room. If you can't find her, follow me and then you can find her.
Well, yes, thank you for having me. God bless you, and I will talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, good night, everyone.
Bye.